Hey everybody, I'm Jacob Nordby with the Heal Plus Create Writers Community, and I'm here with my writing community partner, Lauren Sapala. Hey, Lauren.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Sapala.
So Lauren and I have been working with writers for a long time, and we have this writing community on the Heal Plus Create platform. And I just love, Lauren, I just love what's happening there. It's so exciting to watch people really engage and start taking steps forward, even if it's baby steps sometimes. But some of these people have been wanting to write for 20 or 30 years and have gone to conferences and read books and joined groups. And it's so cool to watch them actually start writing. A lot of that is credit to your work with the silent writing groups and how you kind of help people kind of get across that line. So I'd love to hear what your experience is so far watching people get started.
Gosh, I was thinking about this the other day, and because I am highly sensitive and I am very emotional. I'm an emotionally centered person. I was driving and I started to actually kind of cry a little because I was thinking about the bravery that I have seen. Some of these people have shown up with deep trauma, old energetic injuries, PTSD, still working through grief, and they've shown up anyway. And it's been so hard, but they've said, I'm ready to write my memoir. I'm ready to write my novel. I'm ready to work through this stuff. I'm ready to really finally deal with the things that are holding me back.
Yeah.
It's really uncomfortable. Sometimes this is not fun work. Doing inner work is not always rainbows and unicorns, as we all know. But these people are showing up anyway, and it's incredible to watch, and it's just such an honor to witness it and be walking side by side with during this journey. It's really wonderful.
Well, and I'm glad you said that because it's been in my heart for so many years to do that with people, and I felt intimidated by that process, Lauren. Like getting people in a mindset of writing or giving some tips and tools, that's one thing, but actually holding folks' hands in a community setting that says you can go all the way through this process, not just get to the gate and then say good luck on your journey, like actually walking through it. And I mean, that's the role of guides, which is what we do here. So we put together this self-publishing workshop that's coming up on February 11th, and I'm so excited about it. And I know that a lot of people have some blocks and hangups about self-publishing. So even though they might cognitively say, yes, I want to learn about that, take control of the process and do it for myself, there's still some stuff that's under the surface that I think holds the finger back from saying, let me go ahead and register and really get started. And I'm curious, what do you think some of those things might be?
Well, I always teach from my own personal experience. And I always get the question, why did you self-publish? Why did you make that choice? And I always say, I'm self-published and I would never go back. And they say, why would you say you'd never go back? If you got a deal now from a traditional publisher or found an agent, wouldn't you switch? And I always say, no, because of my personal experience. I queried for years. I queried on 3 separate books. I got nowhere. And finally, when I wrote my nonfiction book, The INFJ Writer, I knew I didn't want to wait around any longer. I knew so many years had passed and I felt so much mounting frustration. And I realized some deep, dark truths about myself. And one of those was that I was waiting for someone else to approve of me. I had put my dreams on hold. I had put my destiny on hold. I knew I was supposed to be a writer. I was very clear on that. I knew I was a creative being. I knew I was here to serve. I knew I had some helpful information, helpful ideas for people, but I put all of that on hold because I was waiting for someone, the gatekeepers, the authorities, the mom or dad figure, the person who knew more than me. I was waiting for that person to come in and say, you're good enough. We read your book and guess what? You are good enough. We have decided that you have what it takes and we will approve of you. And now you can walk through the gate. And when I realized that, I mean, it wasn't fun. Like I was actually pretty embarrassed that I'd been holding on to this for so long. But I'd always had this overachiever thing. I always got very good grades in school. I was very good at getting the A+.
Right.
And I looked and said, this is my pattern. where I'm waiting for someone else to tell me I'm okay
Yeah.
before I can be okay, before I can feel okay, before I can take action in my own life.
Right.
And it was paralyzing me. It
Mhm.
was literally paralyzing my writing dreams.
So let me ask you something. We have a similar experience there, with the exception of I didn't query for years and years like you did. I queried some, and then I got some answers from a traditional publisher that helped me realize this book won't go through a traditional source, a channel. And so I just need to take the next step. So I learned how to self-publish myself immediately, right out of the gate. And I had to do it I was completely broke, Lauren. I was so broke, which I'll talk about during the workshop that we're going to do on February 11th. But what happened for you after you stopped waiting and you got your first book out there? What began to change? What did you notice?
What really began to change was that people started contacting me. And I didn't expect that. And I just put it on Amazon. I was not a marketing guru. I did not know what I was doing. I did the best I could. I looked around, a little bit about keywords and categories and these very intimidating concepts, but I really just put it on Amazon, and people started contacting me and saying, I read your book and it really helped me.
Yeah.
I read your book and it changed some things for me. I read your book. Are you a coach? Can I be your client? Doors started opening. And I always say that's how I met you. That is how you walked into my life. You found my book on Amazon and you emailed me and said, hey, I wrote a book called Blessed Are the Weird. You seem weird. You write about INFJs. That was the start of our connection. That never would have happened.
Right. And my experience of it was similar in that when I began putting it out there, it's like that, a little hard to define, almost metaphysical. You move confidently in the directions of your dreams and great forces come to your aid. In my case, I'll put the caveat, you don't have to necessarily even move confidently. If you just move that direction, things start to happen. But I noticed, in fact, I'm going to be taking people during this workshop, during my session on February 11th, I'm going to be taking them and showing them the hot mess of a WordPress blog that I had when I started, how I began putting things out on social media without any sense of this is going to be the right thing or not. But watching, it's like an initiation, Lauren, and hearing you talk about INFJ writer and my book, when I first self-published it, it's like stepping across the threshold that says, I'm a writer, I have a book. And I began to see myself differently and began to see my work differently. And I want to share that with a lot of people who have been waiting.
Well, and I know so many people are working as coaches or are working, they have their own business. They have really helpful information. And another thing that really changed for me when I had a book out, some people couldn't afford coaching sessions with me, or they didn't have the time to do it. But with a book, that was something I could just put in someone's hands. Or, I was like, it's $10. Like anyone can afford $10, and this can help you too. If you don't have the time or the space for coaching right now, it also opened me up to teaching classes and creating my own courses. I never planned on doing any of that. I never saw that in my future. It all started with that one book on Amazon. Really. And
it's remarkable.
It can change your entire creative life. And the other thing I'd like to say, and I don't want to be disparaging about all the different programs out there, but there are a lot of different self-publishing workshops and programs, and they are so expensive. And it's so much information you don't need. It's so much fluff and kind of like empty, information that's not really helpful. Most of the people I talk to who are just getting started with self-publishing, they're like, I'm already overwhelmed even thinking about it.
Right.
Our workshop, it's really going to show you what you basically need to do, how to cut costs, how to figure out costs. I'm going to show people my Kindle Direct Publishing dashboard. Like, here's how you log in. Here's how you see your royalties. Here's how you actually upload something. I've been so astounded, so many workshops where it's about self-publishing and they give you all this information and they don't even tell you how to log in to Amazon to put your book on there.
Right.
So like, we're going to be really making sure you have the foundational aspects in place to learn how to do this on your own.
Yeah, I think that can't be overstated, overemphasized. And I'm with you in not wanting to disparage the plenty of other programs out there. Kind of all around the author space. If you're a writer, aspiring writer, there are people, organizations out there that really promise the moon and take a lot of money, and it's hard sometimes to know if any of that actually worked. That's why we've tried to price this very affordably, and also that really radical focus on step-by-step nuts and bolts. We'd like you to leave this workshop knowing I can do it, I know how to do it, and if I need help, I know how to get the help I need. The other thing, Lauren, I just want to say, it's one thing for us to talk about. Do you have one or two of your books nearby, your self-published books?
Gosh, I don't.
Okay. So there's Blessed Are the Weird. That was the second book I published. This is The Divine Arsonist. That was the first. Those are both self-published books. What's interesting is, without soliciting any of this, those books eventually caught the attention of traditional audiobook publishers, and I got audiobook deals on both of those two first books. And so those are now out there on audio, and those versions went through a traditional publisher. The other thing a lot of people are worried about is, if I stop querying and self-publish, does that mean that traditional publishers won't look at my book anymore? And I've just basically consigned myself to the slush pile of vanity publishing. And the answer is absolutely not. In fact, a lot of people don't realize that Julia Cameron first self-published The Artist's Way. I was going to look for that list of famous people who have self-published, Lauren, and it's really quite a list. It's kind of surprising how many books that we know and love and everyone has heard of were originally self-published. And so I just want everyone to realize you're not committing to a life of being an indie author 100% if you go ahead and release your book in its current form. The other thing to be aware of is, because a publisher can pick it up, and often once you make that step into the marketplace and begin offering your work, if a book is going to start growing legs, it's going to start growing legs. And so if that's what you're worried about, that can often be a great way to actually break into the marketplace and get your books being talked about, get on the radar somewhere,
Well, and I will say, one of my favorite authors, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad guy, who I think Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it was on the bestseller list for years and years and years. It might still be on the bestseller list, but he self-published, and he used to take stacks of his books to car washes and leave them at car washes and with a sign that says, take one, they're free. That was how he got his start. And the second thing I'll say is, you might say, I really want to get picked up by a traditional publisher. I'm just doing this to break into the business. And then you will be astounded at how much you like it. That's what happened to me. I was shocked. I was really, really shocked at how much I just plain liked it. I liked designing the cover. I liked figuring out the formatting. I liked deciding on the title and what the whole thing was going to look like. I still like that stuff. It's really, really fun. And I never expected to like that stuff. If you would have asked me, years ago, I would say, oh no, I wanted them to do all of that. I don't want to be in on any of those decisions. And now, like I say, I would never go back.
Well, and it's interesting. So I have a bit of a hybrid experience there. So I did my the Creative Cure book that came out. That's a traditional published book, and traditionally published. And I suppose I should probably demonstrate that I know how to, speak a little bit. And I love the fact that it was traditionally published. I worked for Hierophant Publishing for 7.5 years as a marketing director, and so I got to see the insides of the traditionally published book channel in ways that I probably couldn't have otherwise learned about. And one thing I'll just say is that having the experience as an indie writer and also publishing some things traditionally, to your point, Lauren, like, there is so much juice and a sense of you're kind of have your hands on the steering wheel. Some people don't want that, don't need it. But you're right. It is exciting. It's exciting to be able to log into your dashboard on your KDP account, your self-publishing through Amazon account, and real time hit refresh and go, oh, another book just sold. There's something really exciting about that when it's underway.
Well, I have kind of like I call it like a popcorn mind, like my mind's kind of like a popcorn machine. I have so many different ideas. And that's what I love about self-publishing is, I write self-help, I write nonfiction about creativity and writing, personality theory. I also write novels, and my novels are entirely different. They're very dark, but I don't have anyone telling me, oh, we want you to just keep cranking out books in the same vein. Like, we don't want you to write that. I can write whatever I want, which for me works out really well because I want to write a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
That really satisfies me creatively. So if you are someone who, I say popcorn machine, but if you have a rainforest mind is a term people use, or you're a multi-potentialite, self-publishing is also a really nice choice because you can switch focus when you get bored. You can switch focus when you are creatively called to something else. That's another thing I really love about it.
I also want to say, this is a brand new book by our friend Paul Boynton, who is one of the teachers in this upcoming workshop. And Paul, many people know Paul because he's the author of Begin With Yes, a self-published book that has done extremely well over the years. And Paul just published this. I was involved in, advising him and working through kind of how he set this thing up. In fact, Craig Hart, who is also one of our teachers on February 11th, designed the cover. So I love holding a new book in my hand that somebody had the courage and the just pure grit and everything to pull all the pieces together and get out into the marketplace. Another one that I'm holding here is this is a book of poetry and photography by my dear friend Paul David Shea. And it took him a decade to get this one out. He was working with me as a guide, Lauren, and I finally asked, hey, what would happen if we just put it on the calendar for you to present this to our Heal Plus Create community as kind of a celebration on a certain date? And that was a year ago. And, he jumped in and did it. And I asked him the other day, how did it feel? What changed for you? And he's like, Jacob, there's something crazy. He's like, I love this little book, but he's like, it really isn't about that book anymore. He said something about doing it and getting it out there and not waiting and waiting kind of popped the creative cork. And he's like, now I feel like I'm so much more capable of creating all the other things, including workshops and things that aren't books. But he's like, I have several other books in me, and now I know I can do it because I've done it once. And there was another one I was looking for right here. But I just want to say that I know you share this with me. One of the reasons we're doing this workshop and also building our Heal Plus Create writing community is because we don't want followers. We want to walk beside people as they gain their own confidence and empowerment so that they are no longer saying, well, I'm going to another writing workshop to see if I can get it right this time. No, we want to actually be holding up your books and celebrating the fact that you had a creative breakthrough and that now the gate feels like it's unlocked and is open for you to walk forward into everything else that you'd like to create,
Well, and I want to say too, you don't have to have a finished book to take this workshop and get a lot of benefit out of it. You can be halfway through or just beginning it, or just have a really great idea and come to this workshop, and you will be shocked at how many more new ideas are triggered or how much stuff opens up for you where you're like, wow, this is actually way easier than I thought. I'm not so intimidated. I feel more confident to look into other options now, different workshops. So don't feel like, well, I have to have a manuscript ready to go. I'm ready to push the publish button tomorrow. You can be at all different stages with
for sure.
your idea and still get a ton of helpful information out of this workshop.
Yeah, and some of the things we're going to cover is how to find the right editor for the kind of book that you're working on. I have some manuscript designers and cover designers going to be showing up, Lauren, during my session to actually show you the process of what do you send us and how do we clean it up. Like if you look inside of Blessed or the Weird, there's some very interesting sort of styling that they did at the top of the pages and stuff. And so I have this actual manuscript designer coming to the workshop on the 11th to talk about that. And so when you begin to understand, oh, here's how you can interact with these very affordable professionals who will make your book stand up on the shelf next to traditionally published books, so you don't have to hang your head. It doesn't look like a pile of garbage or like you did it in a back room somewhere. The fact is, you can turn out books with the help of these professionals and these resources that we have. You can turn out books that stand up right next to the books you love so much at the bookstore.
Oh, I get that all the time. I get that in an email.
Keep talking.
Where people say, I'm interested in self-publishing, but it's the editing. The editing is what's getting me because it's so expensive. And, I'm looking on different websites at these editors who worked for the Big Five in New York, and they cost an arm and a leg. I know people, I have a lot of connections, and I know a lot of editors who are very affordable and are very hands-on and very gentle. These are not people who are going to get out the red pen and slash your book to bits.
Right.
These are empathetic, kind, compassionate people who really want your book to shine and will work with you in a very gentle, loving way to do that. And you don't have to feel like you're back in English class and your paper getting a bad grade, you're getting an F. Those people exist, and I know them, and I know you know a lot of them too, Jacob. That's part of it. Is after this workshop, you can always email us and say, hey, you mentioned a great editor connection or a great formatting connection, or just somebody who can help me get the ISBNs. Like, where do I get a hold of these people? And we will help you out. We will connect you with these people.
Yeah, and we're going to give you lists of resources during the workshop, and as you say, Lauren, we're there also to answer questions, after the workshop is done. Also, everybody gets a replay of all the different workshop sessions for a year, so you can come back to it, even if you're not ready today to start self-publishing. If you need it in 8 months, then it'll be there for you. I also wanted to hold this up. This is a proof copy of a journal, and those of you who were at the Heal Plus Create retreat in Marin probably recognize this, but it occurred to me, Lauren, that I'm like, I want to have beautiful custom journals made, and for whatever reason, it seemed like such a barrier. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute, what am I doing? I got the manuscript designers involved, and they helped make the inside look really pretty. And their company also did the cover on this one. And I mean, literally, and I had several different covers made, several different styles, spiral bound, soft cover, hard cover. So within 3 weeks, we actually published 4 or 5 different journal versions, and they're up on Amazon right now, and they're a wonderful resource. And I'm just bringing that up to say, so many of the things that you might want to create around whatever teaching, whatever, level of guidance, workshops, anything you do, you can actually find yourself really in the driver's seat and spend very little money to create a lot of things that will support your overall business and work, whatever it is you do.
That's another thing about self-publishing. If you are at all an artistic person, or you like different artistic pursuits, that's another thing that really will surprise you. I can't tell you how many clients I've worked with where they're like, well, I guess I'm just going to give it a stab at making the cover myself. And then 2 months later, they're like, I think I'm going to launch my own cover design company. Like, I love this. This is so fun. You can get on Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator, Canva. The Amazon KDP dashboard has a cover creator within it that you can. There's so many options nowadays. There's so many options. Self-publishing, it's not like it was in 2007, where it's like this wasteland and no one knows what to really do. There's so many people ready to help you. Okay,
I want to take just 1 minute, because I know that you have other clients to work with, and I have more things than I can even talk about today. But I want to make sure that everyone understands, when you jump on the self-publishing workshop site, the enrollment site, I'm going to share my screen because I want to talk to you about the options there. What I mean by that, I'm going to go right by all of this. If you haven't spent any time there, this is where you learn all about this workshop and what we're doing. But I wanted to show you that you can either purchase the workshop just by itself for $197 during the early bird period. You get all the replays, all the resources. Nothing is less than by buying just a standalone ticket. But I did want to say that we have this special running right now, that if you join our writing community, our Heal Plus Create writing community, on the annual plan, you'll get that workshop included, as well as a bunch of other bonuses and items that come with this. So I just wanted you to be aware. Oops, there's somebody in our community making a comment. I wanted you to be aware of what this is. So you can either just buy the $197 and jump in and have a great workshop with us, or if you feel like, hey, I love what these guys are doing, and I probably should, take a step in deeper so I get all the support I need as I'm writing and finishing my book. This is a really wonderful deal. So if you jump in on the annual plan, you'll get this workshop included. And I'm really excited because I love having a community where it's no longer, somebody just sending me an email and saying I need, advice on how to get my book published. And if I have time, I try to get back to that. Now we have an entire community with a regular monthly schedule of writing sessions and workshops and all kinds of resources to help you really take the next step forward. So I just wanted you to be aware of what the difference was on those two options.
Well, and I just want to say, like, come join us. The writing community, it's such nice people. It really is. It's a lot of us are introverts. It's a very sweet, gentle, safe space. So if you're like, I have social anxiety, or I get overwhelmed easily, or I'm very sensitive, no problem. Like, really, no problem. We all are in this space. It's all people like us who are like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just making up as I go along. Like, that's what we specialize in.
Yeah, wow. And I'm really watching it come together in that way, Lauren, which, you and I launched the writing community about 6 months ago, and it's been interesting to just kind of watch the wheels start to turn. I feel like we're just now starting to really gel, and I'm watching people forming their own little creative clusters and meeting with each other and outside of our regular scheduled sessions. And that just makes my heart happy. I want to jump back just for a moment and talk about those of you who are curious about people who write series, or they have high production. So they're not just doing one book like I do, one book every several years. They're doing several books per year. So Craig Hart, who is one of our teachers, has published over 29 books right now. And he made a distinct shift. Lauren, when he first started, he was writing these novels or nonfiction books that he would describe as tearing it out of my soul. And at a certain point, he said, I really want to just write because I love to write stories. And also, I think there's probably a way to earn a living by writing in a different way. And so he started studying and then went out and started writing these serial novels, spy and thriller novels and things like that. And he's using all the tools we're going to be talking about during this session. And he is he's just incredible, and he's turned it into an actual business for himself, and more than like you and Paul and I. We write these books and they're part of our overall body of work and their outreach, but Greg just kind of has his head down and he's writing several books per year and taking care of baby twins at home while his wife, who's a professor at the University of Iowa. And so I'm really excited to share different styles here as well, like Lauren's, mine, Paul Boynton, and his is such a soft, gentle, he just really takes care of 2 million people on Facebook and uses his books as part of that connection. So I think that kind of whatever version of writer you are, by coming to this workshop, you're likely to get information, but also inspiration, and realize, oh, I can really relate to that. Now I feel like I can do it. Not just can do it, it's time for me to do it.
And that's why I want to say, writers of all stripes. It does not matter if you have a finished book. It does not matter if you're like, well, I think I might want to write a healing journey book, but I also may have a novel inside of me. I'm not sure. You don't have to be sure. You don't have to be sure about any of it. This is not like you're going to decide what to do set in stone kind of workshop. We're going to open stuff up. We're going to open stuff up, and we're going to see what unfolds for you, what's right for you and the person you are and the writer you are, the artist you are.
Right. And Lauren, I just had this visual because I have 2 or 3 friends, and a couple of these people who I see standing, and they've been standing at the same place for years now, but they're standing at this fork in the road, and one fork is traditionally published and the other fork is self-published, and they just keep standing there. And I'm not making fun of that. I certainly understand that. But what I would love to do is help our people who show up to this workshop realize, if you take this path towards self-publishing, indie publishing, that does not mean that you have forever forsaken the other path. I want you to no longer feel like you're at the fork in the road and just can't move. I want to have you feel like you are moving toward what matters to you, your creative dreams, and actually creating a finished book that's out there in the world. And then you have physical proof. On days that I have my own self-doubt days, plenty of them, but on some of those days, I glance over and see a book that I wrote on my own bookshelf, and it's like, I guess I must be a writer. There's a book.
That was exactly what I had to do. I was at that fork forever. I was at that fork for like 6 or 7 years. I mean, it was a long time I was at that fork. And I had to finally say, I have to be the one that decides I'm good enough. And that's what I energetically did when I made that decision. Now, for me, the way things unfolded, like I said, I never want to go back. I loved it more than I ever thought possible. But what was really important to shift me to move was for me to say, I can't wait for anyone else to tell me I'm good enough. I have to do that for me. Yeah. And I think for a lot of times, the decision to self-publish is that. It's someone energetically saying, I'm deciding that I'm ready. I'm deciding I'm good enough. I'm deciding that I'm taking back my power, and I'm going to use my power to make a life decision that's best for me.
And like any creative step forward, you're always stepping into the unknown, because one of the definitions of creativity is the process by which something rare, original, and valuable is formed. And nothing rare and original is ever formed when you know exactly how it's going to turn out. And so I just want to say, if you feel uncertain, and not just about this workshop, that's not just by our workshop. It's if you feel uncertain about taking your step forward into creative motion, I want to invite you to realize, yes, it is going to feel uncertain. Yes, you do not know exactly what you need to know and need to do on the other side of that first step, or third or fourth step, wherever it is you feel like you are. But I do want to say that once you take that step, and you've said it a couple of times already today, Lauren, like once you take that step, something changes. Something changes. It's no longer a concept. Now you're actually moving.
Well, and you're not alone. That's
Yeah.
part of it too. And that's why, like, joining the community, it's a whole different thing than some of these programs out there, because it's you understanding that you are not alone in this.
Right.
Like, you take that first step and then you meet new people, which is kind of scary, but you say like, I think I want to write a book. I think I want to publish a book. I don't know. And these other people are like, yeah, I do too. And I have questions too, or I have some answers that could help you, or, I'm just here and I'm willing to see that. I'm willing to see you. So many people who show up in our community say, I've never felt truly seen. I've never felt truly heard.
Yeah.
That's part of it too.
Well, and I think that a lot of people have joined a lot of writing groups that turned out to be, in many cases, more about a certain word count, or it turns into a critique group. And to your point, I mean, a lot of times people end up not feeling safe or seen or heard. They're like, yet again, I'm dying of shame over here and just going to fade into the background, And so our group is really meant to be the antidote for that. It's really about self-discovery. Who am I? What kind of writer am I? What help do I need? What are my blocks? And Lauren, you go masterfully into so much of the hidden inner blocks, old trauma patterns that keep showing up. And I'm sure we'll touch on some of that during the self-publishing workshop, but really we go into depth with that in our community. So I feel like we could keep talking about this for the rest of the day. And I know that you have other things to do. So I'm so glad. Thank you for joining me. And I can't wait to see who else shows up for the workshop.
Oh, I'm so excited. Please come join us. Really, Jacob and I are not attached to how much you're producing or how many achievements you've racked up. That's nice. That stuff's always nice.
Right.
But if you join us, we're going to be asking, like, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? Really, the truth. And it's okay if it's hard. It's okay if you're not feeling great that day. We've been there, but that's what we're really focused on.
Right. Yeah. Well, I never know how to, end these things with some sort of polished sign off, Lauren. So I think I'll just say goodbye, but thank you so much for helping me talk about this. And I always love teaching with you. So I'm so delighted that we're doing this.
Well, and I'll just say, hopefully we will see you February 11th for this workshop. We would really love to see you there.
We really would. All right, my friend. Well, go do your things and I'll swing back and talk with you later.